live from YouTube as well. Okay, so I'm live on YouTube as well. Let's see. There are 6 participants. I think because it is a new platform, people are not. Yeah, but the attendance in the live room are just 6 people, so I think should be more. For some reason, they're not able to kind of get in, I think. So not sure. But I've done live on YouTube as well, so if somebody is not able to kind of come in here, they'll be able to tune in YouTube. I'm just going to remind everybody. Okay, I can see there are 8 participants, 7 participants. Thanks, guys. I think it's a new platform. It's different to Zoom, so I think it's going to be a little bit challenging, but I think the platform is really nice. So I was thinking, let's try this one rather than Zoom, and hopefully it works. Okay, I'm going to end this one here and share my screen. And share. Okay, I think it's 10 past, so I'm going to start, although people might join later on. So if you can hear me clearly, can you type in the comments there? Or you can grab a mic. You know how to grab a mic. On your left, there is an option called grab a mic. And just shout. Just give me a, just tell me something that we can hear you or it's clear or something like that. Or type in the comments. Thanks. Okay, so I think I'm gonna start now, and people can come. Yeah, okay, very good. Thanks, Manish. All right, so I'm gonna start, and forgive me if there are any technical issues, because this is the first time I'm using this platform, so there could be some technical issues, but I hope you'll get the message, and we'll be able to kind of learn something from today's session. All right, so I'm gonna start, and today I will be talking about some resources and tips on how to find research position, where to get started with the research positions, and what are the things that you need to prepare to be able to get into research degrees in different countries abroad. Okay, so I think a couple of housekeeping rules here. You can log on to Around the World if you're watching via YouTube. Log on to Around the World today for a fun and interactive session. You can grab a mic, you can listen to music like the break music, introduction music, and things like that. And the question and answer section will be at the end of the session. So bear your questions, or keep your questions with you for the moment. Or if you want to interrupt during the session, then you are happy to kind of grab a mic and just let me know what comments or questions you have. But I would prefer to have a question and answer session at the end of the session. Okay. And if you're watching via YouTube, YouTube Live, put your comments or questions in the chat box, and I'll regularly monitor it, and I'll try to answer them at the end of the session. Okay. Now, some of the undergrad students, when they graduate as an optometrist, they're not sure whether they should go in a clinical field or in a research. So there are a few points that I'd like to highlight. Whether you should choose a research career in research, or you should go in a clinical route. Okay, so you should choose a research route if you want to contribute something to the world. So if you want to invent something, if you want to discover something, then you are likely to be more successful in research. And you want to test new methods and try new things. That's where research kind of comes. And also the legacy. So if you do a research, if you find a really interesting finding, that can be that could change the method of practice, or any different things, method of practice, method of how things are done, and things like that in future generations. So if you want to keep that legacy of your research, then I think you are good to go in research. The second point is if you're happy with a decent lifestyle. So this is a funny thing. Most of the researchers are not very rich people. So if you want to be a very rich millionaire or billionaire, you have to go, I suppose, in a business route rather than being a researcher. So I think if you're happy with a decent lifestyle, although there are researchers who are billionaires and millionaires, but it is rarely a case. So if you're happy with a decent lifestyle, teaching, following your passion and things like that, then you are good to go in research. And the third thing is you are curious. You're eager to know why and how things happen, and wanted to know different ins and outs of different activities, different physiological phenomena, different diseases, and things like that. So there are three things that I think that if you fall in this criteria, then you're good to go in a research career. Okay. Now, career pathway. Now, as an optometry student or undergrad bachelor's degree, there are two different, if you've completed your undergrad bachelor's degree, there are two different routes, broadly categorized into postgraduate coursework degree. One is the postgraduate coursework degree, the other one is postgraduate research pathway, okay? And ultimately leading to employment. Whether you do a coursework degree or a research degree, you're ultimately going to get a good job. So in terms of the postgraduate coursework degree, we can consider like the Master of Optometry, Doctor of Optometry, Master of Science in Clinical Optometry, and Fellow of College of Optometrists and Vision Development. And there are a few residences in the United States where they do pediatric optometry, ocular disease, and things like that. So postgraduate coursework, these degrees fall under postgraduate coursework degree. Now, what I'm going to discuss today is the postgraduate research pathway, which is advancing your, studies in research, which is Masters of Philosophy, Doctorate of Philosophy in clinical or basic science. So as an optometrist, you can do both clinical as well as basic science. I've seen lots of optometrists who are doing neuroscience, cellular biology, molecular biology, and things like that. So there's lots of opportunities for undergraduate students to be able to, do research in various fields. And ultimately, if you are doing a postgraduate coursework, you might be doing employment as a work as a clinician, but it doesn't have to be restricted as a clinician, although some of the kind of individuals who do masters in optometry, doctorate of optometry, they can go into academia as a professor or clinical professor, lecturer, and things like that. So, and in terms of like the postgraduate research pathway, if you do an MPhil or PhD, then you're likely to be going into the academia pathway, like as a lecturer or associate professor or researcher, or scientist, and things like that. So there's that opportunity after doing the postgraduate research pathway. All right. So now, as an undergrad, I think in Nepal, I think we are very lucky to have the research element in our undergrad degrees. So I think we have to utilize that opportunity as much as possible to be able to kind of enhance our skill set for our future research degrees. All right. So during undergrad, I've seen lots of students asking me for research ideas and things like that. So I think that's one of the key elements to brainstorm research ideas, what is going on in the field, try to think out of the box, try to read journal papers and things like that. So, brainstorm research ideas and identify a gap. In terms of while you do brainstorm research ideas, identify a gap. These are some of the examples, these current gaps are some of the examples that we see currently, such as myopia progression. Myopia is a very hot topic. So you could do anything like looking at the choroidal thickness in myopia, change in myopic, I suppose, choroidal thickness after introduction of certain lenses. There are so many things that you could do. So you have to brainstorm and see some journal articles where they are published similar kind of areas. And it is okay that your research doesn't have to be groundbreaking, or it doesn't have to be really, really kind of giving some significant findings. It's just a learning process in undergrad. So just to understand what are the methods, how research works, and things like that. Okay. The other gap. One of the examples of the other gap is the early diagnosis of vision disorders, comparison of different tests. You could do visual field test between an octopus and the other Humphrey, or so if there is a new device that's coming in, just compare that device with the gold standard device and things like that. Okay, and then there's another kind of trend of digital methods to assess visual function. Now, in myopia as well, there's digital methods to like light-based stimulation therapy to control myopia. There is video games for amblyopia treatment and those sort of things. You don't have to discover something really groundbreaking in your undergrad studies. Even that's true for PhD studies. Okay, I'll come to that later. So one thing that you need to remember in your undergrad degree is use very robust methodology, following the international standard guidelines as much as possible. So, I've seen lots of students who follow very, inadequate or compromised methodology for the sake of their, to get the research easily, or to get the data collection easily, or things like that. So I think you have to be really robust in following international guidelines for research. Okay, to kind of research methodology. And one of the good things is learned writing. One of the kind of the skills that you could do is learn writing early. Take courses on Coursera. I'm sure most of you are aware of the Coursera platform and online learning. There are lots of, I'll provide you some resources later on in terms of online learning and things like that. Okay. And one of the things that you could do in your undergrad degrees is, if you have a good, robust methodology, if your idea is really kind of unique or novel, it doesn't have to be a groundbreaking research. It could be a simple comparison between tests. It could be but the methods should be really robust. Okay, look at the papers that have done similar kind of activity in your area, and then just follow their methods and try to write a good paper. So one of the opportunities is try to publish this research work, which will help you significantly in obtaining a research position later at the later stage in abroad, in other countries. Okay, internationally. Now, what if you are a clinician? Like, it's very tricky to be as an optometrist when you graduate as an undergrad degree, and how to do research. Again, it's the same thing. Brainstorm research ideas. Try to think out of the box. Don't always concentrate on the clinical element. Just read some of the journal papers. If you have access to them, I'll provide you some resources how to access journal papers and things like that. So again, it's the similar kind of current gaps. there are hundreds and thousands of gaps. Research is a never-ending process. You can find any different topics in research and things like that. So don't worry about it. I'm just checking here if anybody has any comments. So let me know if you had any comments. Okay, I don't see any comments at this stage, so it's all good. Okay, let me slide short. Just wanted to check because I'm using a single screen. I'm just wanted to check if everybody is listening to me. Okay. Can somebody clap their hand or just give me a signal that everything was clear until now? Can you type a comment or? Okay, that's good. Yeah. Okay, so you can hear me. Very good. Okay, I'm gonna continue with this thing. Okay. Now. Okay. So now research as a clinician, as I already mentioned, identify a gap. The current gaps could be myopia progression or early diagnosis of vision disorders, comparison of tests, and digital methods to assess visual function. Okay, and again use robust methodology. In Nepal, you have to apply for ethics if you're a clinician. If you're an undergrad student or student, there is an institutional review board from each of the institutes. But if you're a clinician, there is a Health Research Council, I think, Nepal Health Research Council. There's ethical committee where you can go and apply for your research. And again, learn writing, take courses on Coursera or other online edX or other online learning platform, and publish your research work if possible. Okay. Now, people think that getting into research or getting a PhD is a kind of a very significant thing. For you have to do a groundbreaking or you have to do a very, very, very impactful research while doing a PhD. But that's not true. So here is a comparison between landing on a moon and getting a PhD. All right. So landing on a moon, it's just a small step for one man because one man just landed. But that actually is designed leap for mankind. Why? Because that's the, I suppose, a human going into a next, I suppose, planet or next extraterrestrial area. Okay. But in terms of PhD, it's a giant leap. So if you achieve a PhD, it's a good achievement for yourself. But as a mankind, it's a tiny. There are hundreds and thousands of people who are doing PhDs, and it's not a, for humankind, it's just merely a very insignificant step. So you don't have to be a kind of a groundbreaking research to do a PhD. That's my concern here. Okay, there are lots of steps in terms of obtaining a research position, either be a master's or a PhD, and so I'm going to provide you some tips and resources that will help you to achieve research positions. And I've seen lots of undergrad students that I had advised before being able to obtain these positions internationally. So suppose this will help you in terms of obtaining the PhD positions. All right. I'm going to focus on three things at this in this lecture. That's one is networking, the other one is resources, and the other one is pathways. All right. So networking, resources, and pathways are the three things that I'm going to discuss today. In terms of networking, networking with professors, seniors who are doing research. This is myself, few others who are doing internationally, and authors. So authors means for instance, you are doing a research in myopia, and there's another author who has published a paper in a similar area that you are thinking of. Then try to connect to him and try to network with them, saying that I'm interested in this kind of research. Can you help me and things like that? Okay. And the other one is potential supervisors. So potential supervisors means when you go to a university website, you can find a supervisor button there in one of the postgraduate sections. And try to email them saying that I'm interested in this area. Look at their biography or curriculum vitae and things like that, and then try to write an email saying that I'm interested in this area. And connect with them. Okay. Now the other one I'm going to discuss today is the resources. So resources to access articles, resources writing, where to look for PhD positions, opportunities, and how to approach these groups. And I'll follow up new sessions later on to, how to craft letters to professors, where to look for different things and stuff. Okay. Now I'm going to discuss a little bit about the pathways as well. There are different pathways I already mentioned: coursework and research. But I'm going to focus on research pathway, such as masters and PhD. But definitely doctoral optometry is another area that you could get into. Okay. Now networking means establishing connection. So in conferences such as Asia Pacific Optometry Conference, All India Optometry Conference, American Academy of Optometry, World Council of Optometry, ARVO, Vision Science Society, and International Society for Electrophysiology of Vision. Those are all the common conferences. And if you happen to be in one of those conferences, try to connect with professors and researchers and email them. All right, get a connection. I suppose it's tricky. It's nerve-wracking to be able to go and communicate with somebody. But if you're attending those conferences, utilize this opportunity to meet at least few experts, professors, and researchers that are interested in your area. And then you could go from there, and then you could connect with them. I take their cards, and then just go from there. Okay. Now, some of the conferences that you might think of going are, and then there is a special opportunity for travel grant as well. So Asia Pacific Optometry Conference or All India Optometry Conference. These are very good conferences where I think that clinical practice, the focus is both equal clinical practice as well as research. So and there is a possible travel grant of $500 to $1,000 US. And the other meeting is American Academy of Optometry meeting, which is more focused on the clinical practice rather than research. And there is a possibility of obtaining a $750 US travel grant. And I've seen few people from Nepal who have obtained this travel grant. So why not? You can go give it a go. Now the other conference, which is the biggest conference in the ophthalmology and vision science, optometry, ophthalmology and vision science arena, is the Association for Research in Ophthalmology and Vision Science meeting, which we call ARVO, which has more research element than clinical practice, and there is a possibility of obtaining research grant between $500 to $1,000 US. And the World Council of Optometry, where both clinical practice and research are equally represented, there is an opportunity to obtain the travel grant with between $500 to $1,000 US. And the Vision Science Society, in International Society for Clinical Electrophysiology of Vision. Again, these are more research-focused conferences, and there is a possibility of obtaining $500 to $1,000 US in the travel grant. Okay, is it clear so far? I'm going to check now again. Okay, let's see if there's any issues with the live streaming. Okay, that is very good. Okay, live streaming sounds good. I'm just gonna write a quick message to YouTube people saying that, asking if everything is all right. Is everything all right? Because I'm doing both the YouTube live and the Run the World session concurrently. I'm keeping an eye on both of the things. Okay, so hopefully everybody is clear. All right. Can somebody grab a mic? On your left, probably there's a grab a mic button and just speak something. I think just wanted to. It feels weird to be able to just speak by yourself. I think. I don't know. Because this is a new platform, it could be a little bit tricky. But anyway, if you can, then that's fine. I'm going to continue with the sessions. Okay, so no, I think most of us are using mobile, so I think it was a mistake to be able to kind of to do in this platform because it is more desktop focused. But anyway, I'm going to continue with my presentation. Hopefully everyone is who's listening is clear. Okay, I will continue, right? Okay, I'll continue. So we did this. Sorry. Now the next resources that I'm going to discuss today is the access to research articles. So if you're living in a developing country like Nepal, it is really tricky to get access to research articles, and the universities are not prepared or do not have that many resources to be able to kind of access all these articles. Okay, so the common resources where if you're interested in research and I want to grab research articles for full text, and the common I suppose resources are PubMed, and PubMed Central is the more specific website to grab research articles in full text. Google Scholar, a very good website, one of the best website to obtain research articles. And most of the time, they're like PDFs which are stored by individuals, like researchers, on their own websites, or can be found in Google Scholar. Because generally, PubMed and other databases don't have that option. But Google Scholar is very good because it crawls all the websites of the individual researchers and provide the PDF of the full text. Okay, Hinari, if you're certainly in Nepal, because we're a developing country, Hinari is one of the platform that provides free research articles. I'm not sure how accessible this is. I think if you are in a research institute or academic institute, you will be able to get the password and username. But I think if you're a clinician, then it could be really tricky. Okay, now ResearchGate is another one. In the ResearchGate, it's like a Facebook for researchers. So you can ask questions, you can ask full text. I've sent not hundreds, tens of my full text of my articles to researchers who have asked for full text in ResearchGate, because those are not available in the publishers web. If you go to, for instance, if I publish a paper on clinical and experimental optometry, you won't have full text of that article on their website. So you have to ask. You can ask. If I'm in ResearchGate, you can ask me, can you send me this paper, full text paper, because I'm really interested to read this paper. So yeah, I think that's how you get. So if you don't have an account in ResearchGate, make it now so that you can ask questions on the research methodology and lots of things that you can do. It's basically a social network for researchers. Okay. Now this is the secret sauce, or kind of a separate weapon for researchers, which is a Sci-Hub website. I suppose it is not a legal website, pirated website, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna get kidnapped by saying this to everybody. But anyway, just at the moment, just use scihub.tw. So that the domain name keeps on changing because it's an illegal website, but you can find each and every article that is published so far in this platform for full text. And if you have any issues, just let me know, mention in the comments, and I'll send you different new links later on. Okay. If you don't want to go to that illegal route, then go request authors or seniors such as myself and others who are doing PhD internationally, and request them for articles, and we will be happy to offer you full text of articles. Now, the other resource that is important is writing. Okay, writing, it is very tricky for speakers who are not native English speakers, right? So we have to do really hard work in terms of achieving this, and the writing is one of the key skills in a research career. So there are lots of different resources, and one of the resources is Purdue University, where there are some training materials where you can practice every day. Just do 1 hour, half an hour training for, in this writing. There are prepositions, articles, sentences, paraphrasing, and things like that. So I will send you all those resources. So to those who have registered, I'll send you the resources of the writing, where to look for PhDs, the universities, and things like that. So keep your eyes peeled on your inbox so that I'll send all of these resources. And the online writing lab from Purdue University is one of the good resources for to learn writing. And in Coursera, there are a lot type academic writing, search academic writing, and there's different courses from Stanford University, Harvard University, and things like that. Okay, and you can just, if you don't want to pay the money for Coursera, you can just do the audit. So you don't have to do the, I suppose, the lectures, and you won't get the certificate, but you will be able to do the courses, right? One of the good resources is Grammarly. If you haven't downloaded Grammarly, just download it and download the Chrome extension, even for writing emails and things like that. It is very useful. It will correct your grammar, articles, and things like that. But remember, this is artificial intelligence based tool, so always use your due diligence to be able to think that sometimes these artificial intelligence based tools can suggest something really weird, and you don't blindly support them or blindly accept what they suggest. So use your due diligence as well. But I think most of the time the prepositions and the articles that are real, even for me, I've done research for 10 years, and I'm still struggling with prepositions, articles, and things like that. So Grammarly is one of the good tools to be to use if you are if you are kind of a little bit not really fluent in writing. Okay. And the other resources, which is true for all, not just for undergrads, but PhD students, master's students, is the academic phrase bank. So I'll send you the resources. And this phrase bank is a lifesaver for researchers, because if you're stuck with some of the phrases that are commonly used in academic writing, then this phrase bank has all the phrases where, so for instance, if you want to contrast some of the findings, for instance, if you want to say that these research, the findings of my research are similar to the research in the literature and things like that, there are lots of phrases that are commonly used in academic writing, and this is one of the best resources that you could, especially for non-native speakers of English, okay? But it is equally useful for native English speakers as well. Now, coming to another resources, which is another kind of element of resources, is the where to look for master's and PhD positions. And this is the questions I get quite often from undergrad students, clinicians, or those people who are interested in research. Right? So there are different websites that you could kind of navigate and figure out where to find master's degree, PhD degree, or different research positions. So one of the these are the list of kind of websites where you can look for masters, PhD, or other research positions, even postdocs and things like that. So find a master's. It is a very widely known website for master's degrees. Find a PhD. It's a very widely known website for a PhD degree. Find a thesis. It is particularly for the University of Auckland. So if you're in New Zealand, so if you want to go in New Zealand and do a research, then find a thesis.auckland.ac is, because I did my PhD in New Zealand. I just thought I would put that link there. And for the UK and Europe-based position, jobs.ac.uk is a very good website. Just go to jobs.ac.uk and just type in the search button, type like optometry, and it will give you a list of optometry-related positions, whether it be a PhD position, things like that. But if you are not too lazy to go to individual websites, then find optometry colleges, university web pages, and if you navigate through postgraduate section, and there's option like find a supervisor and things like that, and if you're going to find an email of the supervisor and look at his research interest, for instance, if you're interested in amblyopia, I suppose, and look at a researcher and you have done some work in amblyopia, maybe have published a paper or at least done some work in amblyopia, then write an email to that person, to that professor, and saying that I'm interested in amblyopia and I have this proposal or things like that, and then you take it from there. Okay, but you have to be well prepared, and in future sessions I might give you a quick tip on how to approach a professor to write when you're looking for a PhD position. So stay tuned. I might come up with new interesting tools and resources for you guys to be able to kind of approach properly. So because I've seen so many kind of strange emails to researchers, professors. Recently, there was a thread in Twitter saying that one of the potential students wrote in a title, not in title, but the first paragraph of the email that he or she sent to the professor was, "I like your research, and I think you are too cute." We think that is okay. Maybe his English was not great, but I think those are the things that will immediately put off the professor. So try to write in an organized way. And I'll probably in next future sessions, I'll give you a few tips on how to approach a professor or researcher to be able to ask for a research position. All right. Now, where to look for master's and PhD? Now, if you're not too lazy, go to each university's webpage and look at the postgraduate section, or find a supervisor. And when you see a supervisor who is interested in your research area, then just write an email saying that I'm interested in such and such. I've done such and such work. Would you be able to at least consider my request? Or I'm interested in a PhD degree. And some of the professors or lecturers are really good people. Most of them are good people, and they will be happy to help you. Okay, so these are the list of some of the universities that are that offer a PhD or master's position in optometry and vision science. Okay, I'm going to send you the link of each of the universities later on. So in Asia, Hong Kong Polytechnic University is a very good one, and Elite College of Optometry in India, and the Bharati Vidyapith in India. They are the ones that they provide PhD degrees. Excuse me. In Europe and UK, in Ireland, and Technological University Dublin, that's the one that I'm studying. I'm currently working. The Aston University, City University, University of Manchester, Bradford, Glasgow, Caledonian, Ulster, Cardiff, and there are a few more. Okay, I'm going to send you the link. In terms of Australia and New Zealand, the University of Auckland, Queensland University of Technology, Flinders, Deakin University, University of Melbourne, and University of New South Wales, Australia. Okay. In the United States and Canada, University of Houston, Pacific University. These are the common universities where PhD students are enrolled, but there are a few others which I can send you the link, or you can explore yourself. Indiana University and University of Waterloo. Okay, so these are the links. I'll send you the link of each of this whole link with the resources for those who are registered. I'll send you the link of the schools of the country where they enroll masters and PhD students. Okay. Now I'm gonna again quickly check if everything is all right. If that's all right with you guys. Okay. Good, very good. Everything is all right. Okay, I can see that there's very good. Okay. Now I am gonna continue with it. Okay. Now looking at scholarships, right? So as if you're from a developing country, or even if you're from a developed country, PhD and masters are generally, funded by different scholarships. But there are some people who pay, fall into the self-paying category, and they just want to pay fees. Pay fees. But if you're from developing countries, it's rarely that you will pay for a kind of a PhD degree, because there are lots of scholarships that are available. Which could be from your own government or from the university itself, So the thing is that you have to explore a little bit. Don't be too lazy to explore scholarships, because that's a little bit of a tedious task to go into each of the websites, and then navigate them and things like that. But there are lots of scholarships, and I think if you become diligent in terms of finding the area, or navigating the website, then you should be able to obtain scholarships. So government scholarships, departmental or university scholarships, asking your prospective supervisor, navigating the web page in the scholarship section is one of the few methods. And there are externally funded scholarships as well, which is grants by international and national agencies and things like that. I'm going to send you a couple of links to those common scholarships that are relevant to optometry students or optometrists. Okay, so these are the links. The first one is from Ireland, where I'm at. The Queensland University also has a lot of scholarships available. University of New South Wales also has a lot of scholarships available, and University of Melbourne, Auckland University. If you're really good if you have obtained GPA of probably 3.8, 3.9 out of 4, then there is a 100% chance that you're going to get a scholarship in the University of Auckland, New Zealand. So prepare yourself, obtain high grades, or else I'll tell you later what are the characteristics of a good candidate. All right. And there are some international scholarships as well for in New Zealand, such as the New Zealand Scholarship for International Tertiary Students, which is the, I think, NZ8 or International Doctoral Scholarship something. So go through those links and try to apply. If you're really interested in research, you have to do some work to be able to. And when I searched for a PhD position, I sent hundreds of emails to professors, and I succeeded in a few. I chose in New Zealand. So you have to be diligent. You have to be really hardworking in terms of obtaining the positions. Okay. And one of the good things in the US, if you are enrolled in a PhD position, then you are automatically selected for a scholarship because you will be given some duties of research tutoring, research assistantship, and things like that, where you have to supervise undergraduate students, teach undergraduate students under the supervision of your supervisor. Okay. So that's a good thing about the US. So in the US, you don't have to search for scholarships because most of the cases, the PhDs are under scholarship, but that's not the case for masters. I think if you want to do masters, then you might have to pay. But for a PhD, you are automatically eligible for scholarship, and I think you'll be able to get it. Now, there are different pathways for higher education. So after you complete your bachelor's of optometry degree, there are different ways you could go into, PhD. Okay, so one of the route is go to Doctor of Optometry. I've seen a few people who have done bachelor's of optometry and did Doctor of Optometry not in the US, but in other countries like Philippines and other countries, and have enrolled in PhD degrees. I think that will enhance your qualification if you do Doctor of Optometry. But I suppose if you are really good, you have a good base in your undergrad degrees, have one or two publications, and have got a good GPA, then you're equally eligible for a PhD degree. So a master's degree is quite optional in obtaining a PhD degree. In some cases, I think in the University of Auckland, New Zealand, I think they have now required a master's degree. But in the US, you don't require a master's degree. And in the UK as well, in Ireland, sometimes it's better to have master's degree. But if you have one or two publications, you can show that you have a competent research, then you don't need a master's degree. Okay. And one of the things that you need to require is the English language competency, which is the IELTS in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and even Europe, and GRE and TOEFL in the US. Okay. And normally, PhD takes between 3 to 4 years in the UK, New Zealand, Australia, and in Europe. And in the US, it could be between 4 to 5 years, or even in some cases 6-7 years, depending on the progress of your research. Okay. Now, what are the characteristics of a good candidate? How can you, I suppose, build that skill set so that you are a good candidate, so that you enhance your admission to a PhD degree or master's degree? Okay. There are 4 elements that I have figured out that could help you to build, or if you're a student or even a clinician, or these are the 4 elements that could make you a really competitive candidate for a PhD degree or master's degree, right? So in terms of English language competency, IELTS of greater than or equal to 7 is a very good score. I'm not sure about the TOEFL score, but the GRE score for the US-based degrees is greater than 315. But in some cases, they could be lower, but I think greater than 315 is the minimum credit based on my observation of the students that have been admitted. Now, the other thing is, I'm not sure how practical this could be, but at least 1 or 2 publications as first author in internationally peer-reviewed journals, optometry and ophthalmology journals. So as an undergraduate student, this could be tricky because you're just starting to understand research, and writing papers is, I think, a really heavy task, and especially for non-native English speakers, where we struggle with the different phrases and structure and things like that. It could be really tricky. That's based on my own personal experience. So I suppose if you want to I already mentioned you have to use very robust methodology and things like that. But if you want to publish a paper, or you want to kind of get your research out there, just have to, I suppose, get a good supervisor, whether it could be in your own institute or maybe some seniors that could help you. I have helped a couple of undergrad students to publish their papers, guided them. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it is possible. But there should be a little bit of hard work on your side and some good supervision as well. Okay, that's also one of the key elements. And as I already mentioned, in some institute, if you get a really good academic degree, academic score, such as 3.9 out of 4 in GPA, or approximately 80%, 85% and above, there's a high chance that you're going to get a scholarship, such as at the University of Auckland. If you get 3.8 or 3.8 or above in GPA out of 4, then you're highly likely to get the fully funded scholarship for 4 years. Okay, and in terms of the US, there's the United States. There is the requirement of statement of research or statement of purpose. That should be well structured and justified. In future sessions, I might do a session on how to write a well structured and justified statement of research intent, where I'll invite few candidates or few students who have successfully been admitted in United States universities. So stay tuned to that as well. Now, once you think that you are ready, you've got the skill set, you've got 1 or 2 publications, or you have done masters with high grades, with good grades. Now, I think if you think that you are ready for a PhD position, or you are curious to learn something, or you are interested in research, then there are different ways you can apply for a PhD position. Okay. First one is there could be some PhD openings you can see on university website, or from different email servers, or a friend could forward you, or you could go to jobs.ac.uk and see the list of PhD positions and things like that. Okay, and they always have an email of a contact person, where you should contact. Sometimes they also have an email contact for informal queries. So, for instance, sometimes it is not clearly mentioned that a PhD position is just for the European or EU candidates or international candidates. So you can write an email to the contact person saying, "Well, I'm from here. Am I eligible for this position?" And you can just briefly describe your kind of the research and things like that in that email. Okay. And but most of the cases, if there is a PhD position, it's clear that it's eligible for international students, things like that. Just write an email to the contact person using whatever the requirements, CV, cover letter, and things like that, and appear for an interview if you're selected. There will be a few stages of interviews as well, and maybe in later sessions I'll give you what are the things that they ask in the PhD interviews. So stay tuned. If you're interested, then just let me know in the comments if you'd like these sessions in the future. Okay. And also the other way is find a supervisor. If you go to university websites, you can find an option called find a supervisor, and you can email them saying that I'm interested. For instance, if you're interested in MBA, PMI, whatever that is, for whatever field that is, just email them saying that I've done this research, I'm interested in your research, and just look at the research as well. What have they published recently? Does it align with your research? And things like that. And then just try to figure out, I'm interested in the research, I have this grade, and things like that. And then if you have a proposal, for instance, if you have, suppose an amblyopia, you have devised kind of a tool that detects or that treats amblyopia without patching, just say that I would like to expand this research. I saw that undergrad degrees, if you found that this works, this improves 1 or 2 lines, then say that I want to continue this research further, and things like that. And then maybe your potential supervisor is interested in that area, or he can propose something different. Okay, and then you could take it from there. That's the case for the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, and European countries. But for United States, then there's a PhD openings in the university webpage. I'm going to send you the link of all of these resources. Sorry. And you have to write a statement of purpose, as I already mentioned, statement of research interest or intent or statement of purpose. and they will call up if you are selected. They will call you for an interview, and they will take it from there. Right? Okay. Now I'm gonna quickly check if everything's all right. Okay. Looks like everything is all right. Now, very good. Okay. I'm going to continue. Okay. Now we discussed this. Now let's come to the summary. So, based on today's talk, the summary of today's talk, just give you a quick summary of today's talk. To gain qualifications, whether it's a bachelor's degree or master's degree qualifications, and develop a proposal if you can to submit to your potential supervisor. And it's good to have publications, 1 or 2 publications in journals, international peer-reviewed journals. Good IELTS score greater than 7. GRE greater than 315. I'm not sure about the TOEFL score, but definitely a good grade will lead you to good positions. And a master's degree is optional, but you could get it, and it could increase your chance in some cases. And first class honors means you have to do a research component in your bachelor's degree, and it is good if you can publish that paper. Okay. Now, once you have that qualification skill set, then network with professors, lecturers, or seniors in research, such as myself or others, and to see if there are any areas that they can suggest you or how they can help you in terms of obtaining a position. So in terms of professors, as I already mentioned, just tell them your interest, give a brief background of what you have done before, and things like that. And again, if you're not too lazy, don't be too lazy to navigate web pages of universities, colleges, and researchers, and see their research interests, search for scholarships and things like that. And as soon as you find a contact person, a professor, or things like that, just communicate via emails. And depending on your qualifications, how you appear in the interview, and things like that, you'll be selected for a PhD or master's degree. Okay. Hopefully that is of help, and I'll send you all these links in email. So to those who have registered, you will get a quick email with all of these links of where to find scholarships, what are the list of universities, writing tools, and all these things. Okay. Now, I've seen people, undergraduate students, publishing papers, which is fantastic. Very good. At least being able to know that you could publish your papers and things like that. But you should be really wary of some journals, and don't submit in journals that you think will get your papers published easily. They're just a fame for a moment, and that won't do you any good in long run. Okay, so if you're not sure if that journal is a real journal or a fake journal, just go to this website called SciMajor or something. And check. So if you go to that link, it'll give you a list of things, and then just type the journal. You need to give you a platform where you can type the name of a journal that you plan to submit your paper. And if it's within that website, if you find that website, find that journal, then go for it. If you can't find that journal, then I would be really wary of submitting. And you can see some predatory journals that can publish papers, but I think that's not very good, and it won't do any good in the long run. Okay. And conferences, sometimes you get an invitation from conferences from the organizer called conference series, and it's generally fake, and it's generally not advised to attend such conferences. Okay. Now, another source to identify predatory journals, to find out whether that journal is fake or real, is Bill's list. I'm going to send you the link as well, and see if that journal is within this list, then that is a predatory journal. I wouldn't be, bothering submitting in that journal. You can submit in the journal, and you can see your paper on not print, but on online and see that, oh, I've published, and get some comments on Facebook and Twitter and things like that. But I think in terms of your overall research career, I don't think that will help in any way. Okay. All right. So I think that is all for today, and I am for questions. So if you have any questions, I'm going to quickly check the live stream as well. Apologies. So if you have any questions, if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to stop screen sharing and open to questions. So put on the comments. If you're on the Around the World platform, put on the comments there of your questions. And Mehek Chan says that many students are published in predatory journals and they don't know that. Yes, I think that's one of the reasons that I always, when I give these sessions, always emphasize that don't publish in the journal just for the sake of fame in Facebook and Twitter. It won't do, and it won't improve your writing as well. They won't suggest anything in those, peer-reviewed. So what happens in journal is when you submit an article to a journal, it goes through international peer review where experts, mostly 2 or 3 experts, read your paper, suggest if there are any changes or things like that. And if you, I suppose, send to those kind of journals where there's no robust peer review system, it won't help you. They will publish your paper as it is, which is not good. And I suppose that's not of any help. And whenever your potential supervisor asks you for your papers published before, if you send that predatory journal paper, then it won't be helpful, I think. So yes, be wary of those journals. Okay, more questions? Don't be shy. Ask away on YouTube or I'm going to share us in the YouTube stream, live stream. Okay, Manish, I think that's a very good score. Congratulations on obtaining that score on GRE. But yeah, it all depends on not just the GRE score, but your previous research experience as well. And I'm assuming you're going for the PhD position in the US. So you have to write the statement of research intent or statement of purpose really well. So maybe in the future, I might do another session on how to write a good statement of research. Although I didn't do my PhD in the US, but I have a good friends or have my colleagues or students who have done their PhD in the US. And what I suppose skills or what are the elements that they need to incorporate in that letter of statement of research intent or statement of purpose, I think that will help you. It's not all about the GRE score, but it's about your experience, your, I suppose, statement of research purpose letter as well. So yeah, keep on trying. I think if you do really, I suppose, build yourself in research and at least try to publish 1 or 2 papers in journals, then should be able to get a position. So good luck. And I'm happy to help give suggestions. Although these days I'm quite busy in different areas, but I'm happy to help you in terms of guiding where to apply, what are the things you need to take care of, and things like that. Okay, Urusa has asked, I'd like to ask if you could suggest how to approach amidst pandemic. I heard that they have decreased their seats to international students. I'm not sure. This is just probably a short-term thing that they have decreased their seats to international students. But I think in the long run, you have lots of opportunities, and this pandemic is not going to last forever. So keep your heads high and just keep on applying for positions. I don't think the pandemic will decrease the seats for international students. In contrast, it may increase because now there is so much importance of research, and there are lots of international students who do research. So I haven't seen the evidence of reducing, but I think due to this pandemic, they don't want more students coming in their institute at this stage. I think due to so that they're controlling their transmission of the virus and things like that. I think otherwise, I don't think they will decrease the seats for international students. And because now the public is aware of the research, the importance of research, I think there will be more universities or more positions for research, I think. Hope that answers your question there, Rusa. Let me take a look at the live stream. There's no questions so far. Yeah, if you have any questions, come on. Don't be shy. Don't hesitate to ask your questions. I see that there are only 7 or 8 participants in the Around the World platform. My sincere apologies. I think I'll do a Zoom session later on because I think this could be a little bit tricky to get in for those who were using their mobile phones. And I think Zoom is the commonest platform at this stage. And so I'm going to do a quick poll here and see if you guys are interested in, but I think okay, Manish says that does the history suggest one student per university from each country? No, Manish, I think that is not true. Does the history suggest one student per? I think that's not true because I've seen few students, more than one student in a university in the same batch. So that's not true. You can get more students, but I think it depends on the quota of the university as well. So if you're an exceptional candidate, then you can get more. The university can take more than 1 or 2 students in the same batch. So it is not always the case. And then if you don't get in one university, again you can try another universities, and just make sure that you have that skill set. Have that publication, 1 or 2 publications in journal, right? And get a good GRE score. I think 370, 317 is good, but if you want to try it again to get it better, if you think that you can get an even higher score, then I would recommend to get higher score. And in future sessions, maybe I'll invite some of the people from the US who have already achieved their degrees and see what they think of the score. Okay. And which is better, clinical or research? I think if you're thinking of like clinical research or basic research, or are you thinking like clinical road or research? As I mentioned earlier in the first 2 slides, research, if you're interested in kind of contributing something to the scientific literature, if you're curious of something, if you want to contribute, or if you want to leave your legacy of some, interesting findings for future generation, then research is good for you. But if you're enjoying your clinical work, if you like interacting with patients, or I suppose, happy with day-to-day clinical activities, then I think clinical is for you. So not everybody wants to do research because research is a little tricky and sometimes it could be really hard to get into and things like that. So in my first few slides, I mentioned clinical. If you're happy with the clinical element, such as seeing patients and things like that, clinical is better. But if you're curious to know how things work, how a physiology of human body works, or how cell interacts, or physiological, psychological elements, then research. If you're curious, then research is better. Okay. Now, Prajwal says, I get my GRE in 2019 and received 315. Should I try GRE once more, or should I be focused on publishing research work? Okay, Prajwal, I think GRE is just one element, but I think it is a significant element in terms of getting a PhD in the US. So gain some research expertise as well. Try to publish 1 or 2 papers if you can. Now, as I mentioned, now you have already graduated, So you are a clinician, and I mentioned that you can apply for, if you are an institute, probably working in a academic institute, you can apply for a research, ethical research body, and do it could be a small research. It doesn't have to be a really big research or things like that. There are so many research areas that you could do. So try getting some research expertise as well as I think the statement of research purpose. That should be a very strong, and I can send you the sample, some of the samples, and hopefully you guys already have those samples from different universities. So if you look at these statement of purpose samples in Google search, you could find a whole list of kind of statement of purpose samples, and also go to YouTube and see, there might be some PhD students that might have given like the how to write a good statement of purpose and things like that. So I might come up with a new session, Zoom session, hopefully, because the round the world didn't work, because I think many people weren't able to get in. But I could come up with a kind of a next session on how to write a good statement of purpose letter or cover letter or a CV, and how to approach a supervisor or professor in terms of applying for these research degrees. Okay, hope that answers your question, Predatory. Let's see if there are any questions in the live stream. No questions, right? Okay, Max says that, okay, I'll answer some questions from Manish first. Does it matter if our undergraduate doesn't matter research interest for PhD? Yeah, I think that could be fine. You don't have to always match the undergrad research and research interest for PhD. The thing is, like, if you offer some research evidence, or I think research expertise in undergrad degrees, that means that you are competent. You know what research is, you know what methods to follow, you know how research works, you know how to apply for ethics, those kind of things. It's just understanding the methods in your undergrad research. Even in PhD, it's just understanding the research. And after PhD, you have postdoc, and you become an independent researcher, and then only you will have that I suppose, more leadership thing. So yes, I think in some ways it matter, but most of the cases it may not matter, because in undergrad you're just learning about research process, and if you have published 1 or 2 papers from undergrad research, it means that you are well aware of research and how research process works, how to apply for ethical approval, and those kind of things. Okay, so most of the cases it doesn't matter, but in some cases it might match. Okay. Mehek Chan said, you said approaching professors, how to improve speaking. Okay, speaking is not a crucial element in PhD. Writing is. If you want to improve your speaking, just practice speaking with native speakers. I think. Sorry, there's some notification here. Okay. Yeah, I think try to speak with native speakers if possible. Otherwise, there's an app called Clubhouse where you can learn English, listen to others speaking, and then you can contribute to their speaking as well. So there's an audio app called Clubhouse where you can listen to people speaking, contribute to your knowledge and things like that. So there's that. And also YouTube videos, and listen to BBC and English shows. And there's lots of YouTube videos as well in terms of like how to speak English as a native speaker, and say that like there are certain phrases and things like that. So, but to be honest, let me emphasize you that speaking is not a crucial element for PhD. Writing is. So try to improve your writing, and automatically you will be able to kind of get kind of good in speaking as well. Okay, let me see another comment from here. Okay. Just looking at YouTube. What's the difference in PhD in the USA? So In YouTube, Monos has said, what is the difference in PhD in the USA and Australia or Europe? Is PhD from USA more coveted? Okay. Thanks, Manoj. I think, sorry. So there are differences in the PhD in the US and Australia, New Zealand, Europe. The main difference is the length of the course. So in the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, it could be 3 to 4 years. Okay. But in the US, it could be minimum 4 to 5 years or more. Okay, that's one of the biggest difference. Now, also in the course curriculum in the US, you have the coursework, which means that you have to read some theory of research methods, optics, and those kind of elements, and appear for an exam in the US. You have to do some coursework. So it could be research methods, it could be learning some programming, it could be suppose some physiological methods, anatomy, or depending on your research. So in the US, it's more it's 1 year coursework, 1 or 2 years coursework, I think, and then you'll get a research after third year. But in the US, in other areas like US, like New Zealand, Australia, and Europe, you're straight ahead going with the research element on your first year. So you don't do that coursework. And based on my experience getting the position, I think you have more scope if you do a PhD in the US, because US is a big country, and there are lots of companies and academic institutes that you could get enrolled into. Okay, but if you do a PhD in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, then it could be your scope could be a little bit limited. Although if you do PhD in US, Australia, and things in New Zealand, Australia, Europe, you'd go to US for your further higher research career, like a postdoc or things like that. So I think you have more scope if you do a PhD in the US. But having said that, there is equal opportunity for people who do their PhD in Australia, New Zealand, and Europe as well. You can either stay in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, or go to US for a further career. So if you have to choose between US and Europe or Australia, New Zealand, I would go with the US option. But also depends on your research area as well. So if you have a good research kind of the interest, and if you've got a good scholarship and things like that, then I'll balance those elements as well. Okay, hope that answers, Monos. Now, next question. Hello, sir. Krishna is asking me, hello, sir. Thank you for making my day with such enlightening presentation. I'm wondering what are the possible options after PhD? Very good question. So there are lots of opportunities, and after PhD, you could most of the academic people or most of the PhD students don't know what are the opportunities after PhD. So there are lots of options. One is becoming a research scientist in different companies, industry. For instance, if you did a research in contact lenses, say you found a new lens that controls myopia, and you could go to a different apply for a job in a company, which a contact lens company, which is looking in the different types of contact lenses and things. So that's one option, being a research scientist in a company. The other one is becoming a lecturer or professor in an academic institute. But remember, it is quite limited and it's very competitive. And but in order to get a lecturer or professor position, you'll have to do a postdoc, which is 1 or 2 areas of additional research expertise in research institutes. Okay, so that is another element. And you could be an entrepreneur. You could build your own consulting business, offering training and statistics, research, writing, and things like that. But that's not a very viable solution, I suppose, But I think, or you could return to clinical practice as well. There's always an option to return to clinical practice. And utilize your research knowledge in clinical practice as well. So most of the big jobs that you get after PhD is immediate job aspects is a postdoc position, like 1 or 2 areas of research expertise in research institute, and then ultimately going on to the academic position, which is lectures or professorship. And the other one is, I suppose, the industry companies, where there are lots of companies which ask for PhDs as a research scientist. Okay, that's another option. The other option is, I suppose, different institutes like the charitable institutes, research funding agencies, international charitable organizations, and take a leadership position in those organizations. So if you're doing a research in public health, there's a high chance that you will be involved in some of the INGOs as a leadership, so as a leader in some areas. So there's potential, lots of options after a PhD. So yeah, you could. That is, hopefully that helps. That answers your question, Krishna. Another question is better to pursue MPH for PhD? Better to pursue MPH or PhD, maybe, is it? Or yeah. Well, as I mentioned, if you want to ultimately go to PhD, there is MPH or masters is, I suppose, optional. You can go to get you can go for an MPH, and it could enhance your likelihood of getting into PhD. But in some cases, just bachelor's degree with good grades and 1 or 2 publications is enough. So hopefully that helps. Now I'm gonna go on live stream and see if there are any other questions. No questions. Okay. I think I will, if there are no other further questions. Okay, is OD after PhD a viable option to practice in that particular country? Yes, it is, Manish. Yeah, it is. You can do OD after PhD, absolutely. But the thing is, like, if you want to do PhD after OD, then it could cost you a whole lot in the US. Unless you are an American citizen or permanent resident, it could cost more than $200,000, I think, $200,000. So I don't know if it's possible. If you have enough funding to afford that, then it is possible. Otherwise, only option is to get an American citizenship, either through diversity visa or something like that, and then get admitted in the OD. Because after you get the citizenship or the permanent residency, you will be able to apply for the federal grant or something which covers your fees. So I think it's viable, but it is a bit tricky. Okay, and if you have money, of course, if you have enough funding, then of course, let's do it. All right. I think any other questions, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to end this session. And there's always an option to send me a message via the Run the World platform or my personal email address, paudel.nabin@gmail.com. Okay. And okay, Mehik says, I don't have publication chances are high in US or Europe. Okay, so it depends. Sometimes you don't need to have publications if you have a really good statement research interest and if you have a good proposal. But if you don't have publications and you just have a bachelor's degree, then your chances are high in the US if you get a good GRE score and have a good bachelor's GPA score, then you've got a good chance. And also remember, the statement of research intent is one of the key elements for getting getting admitted in the PhD in the US. So yeah, that's one element that you need to be careful of. Otherwise, try to get expertise in research as well. So that will help you to kind of make sure that you have some knowledge of research methods and things like that. Okay. All right. Now, what else is there? One more query. Mono says, can a person opt for clinical practice after PhD? Okay. Yes, you can, depending on where you are at. So as I mentioned, if you're in the US, then it's a bit tricky because it costs a whole lot of money to get an OD degree. Could cost more than $200,000, which I don't know whether you can afford it or not, but it's quite a significant amount of money. But if you're in other countries like UK, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, there is an option to go back to appear for a licensing examination. And if you pass that examination, then you are good to go. You can practice as an optometrist. So yes, there is an option to go back to clinical practice after PhD. In the US, you have to do an accelerated OD degree, which is for 2 years, and the cost is approximately $200,000. So $200,000. But in the US, but in the UK, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, you have an option to appear for a licensing examination, and if you can pass that examination, then you can practice. For instance, I am licensed here in Ireland, so if I want to practice as an optometrist in Ireland, I can. Similarly, in the UK, you have to appear for a licensing examination, and it's not that hard in the UK, Ireland. So if some of you are interested, I might do another session on how to practice. Yes, there are some people who have done accelerated OD in the US. I can't tell you that. I can tell you later on maybe the name of the persons. There's one younger girl who is doing at the moment, and there was one guy from our Institute of Medicine, who was just completed his accelerated OD in the US. So there are people who have done. So there is a possibility, and then you can get more inputs from those people as well. And I can give you a PM private message later on to say who those person are after I get a consent from them. I'll have to ask them to say, yes, we're happy, and then I can do it. Okay. Okay, I think that is it. So thank you guys. That's very. But my apologies. I think many of you were not able to join this session. I don't know why. Maybe it is due to the. I'm going to do a quick poll and saying that how do you find this session useful or not. Bear with me. Let's do a quick poll. Any more questions? Fire ahead. I'm hanging for a while now, and then I'll be off. Okay, I've just done the polls. Hopefully. Yeah, I think it was a tricky. Can somebody? You guys can speak on the. There's the bottom. Grab the mic option. I don't know how to, because this is the first time I'm using this thing. Let me see if there is an option there. Invite on stage. Okay, I can invite people on stage. Okay, thanks guys. I think everybody says that you enjoyed the session. That's very good. I'm gonna end the poll. Yes. And all right. If there are no more questions, then I'm gonna end the session. And good luck with your studies or applications, and hopefully you'll be able to get PhD positions or master's positions. And if you have any comments or questions, just let me know by my YouTube channel as well as my personal email address, or if you are friends on Facebook, just send me a quick message. I cannot guarantee immediate reply, but I'll try to help you as much as possible. And yeah, always happy to help. So, okay. So no more questions, then I'll close the session, all right? Thanks, guys. Hope to see you sometime soon again. Bye.